This episode of What the Tech is brought to you by Braintree. If you're working on a mobile app and searching for a simple payment solution, check out Braintree. Go to braintreepayments.com/whatthetech for more information.
What the tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zeri, and of course I'm joined by Mr. Paul Thurrott. You know what? Somebody offered me money to give you a new nickname, and it is Paul the Excellence of Execution Thurrott. We're at the meetup. Guy goes, I'll give you $5 if you call him the Excellence of Execution. So there you are. How does it feel, Paul? How does it feel?
I don't know what that means.
The Excellence of Execution. I don't know. I imagine you just impale people, and that's it. That's how you execute them. Happy days, Paul. Happy Microsoft week to you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a big week, and obviously I just got out of the shower, but I'm glad it's over.
A lot's been going on. Oh man, we have so much to talk about. You know, we do show notes here. It doesn't look like it, but we do. And there are weeks. Sometimes. Sometimes.
I mean, we didn't do that.
No.
Not this week, though. Right?
No, what are we, nuts?
Okay.
It's a waste of time. We know what we're talking about.
When
it's busy like this.
At him, Andrew.
Yeah, when it's busy like this, we don't need to do any kind of show notes because we kind of know exactly where we're going to go with this and what we're going to talk about. So there's so much to talk about. Paul's trip to New York.
But you know what? Actually, if you don't mind me interrupting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because that's what I do.
You go ahead.
Before we get started, we should say thank you to you and to Chris for helping us out yesterday. You helped out Mary Jo and I find a place in New York so we could record Windows Weekly. And I don't think people who watch or listen to this understand what a good guy you are, maybe, off camera. And, you're always very helpful and great. But yesterday was particularly good. I just wanted to say thank you again.
Well, thank you for that. I try to be a decent human being. I may not come off it on the air.
No, you really are.
No, it was a lot of fun. I mean,
don't
I
have
had
to
a
tell
great
you
time.
that. I'm saying this for the benefit of... I feel uncomfortable being nice to you, but
yeah, you do. Why?
People need to know. I mean, you've been really, really great.
Is it the I want to punch him in the face look that I have? Is that what it is?
Right.
So
it's just a natural uneasiness around magicians.
So if people that want to see our setup, this was the studio space that we had yesterday. I'm sorry if you're listening to the podcast, but you and Mary Jo, we were. I want to thank CBS and Chris Tobin for getting this for us. And this was our setup here, and this is how you recorded Windows Weekly on a MacBook Pro from 2011, which is amazing if you think about it. But this was the exact studio. This was the control room.
Try not to think about that part of it.
Yeah. It was the control room for CBS Local and CBS National. So they were gracious enough to give us the space, and I mean they didn't even bat an eye. They're like, yeah, do whatever you want, press whatever buttons, don't worry about it. What do you need? Do you need mics? Do you need whatever? They were so nice. I should take advantage of that, actually. I should use that space a little bit more. But now whenever you're in New York, Paul, you could record a podcast there.
Yeah, that was pretty
So
incredible.
it worked out. I do want to talk about that a little bit later. There's so much to talk about. The whole trip, it was so much fun. For 2 days, I spent it with Paul and Mary Jo. We hung out in the city. I met so many great people at the meetup, which we'll bring up maybe on the post show if we have enough time, or maybe on the show, but most definitely on the post show. We run out of time. But before we do that, guys, I want to take a short little break and talk about our sponsor, and that's Braintree. You want to talk about people that you're thankful for. I'm thankful for Braintree. Not because they're an advertiser, but because I've gotten so many emails from viewers telling me that they've implemented this. A lot of our viewers are developers, they're business owners, they're creating a mobile app. One of my friends, I'm not going to name who he is because I named it once before. He's like, I don't want people to know, what we're planning on doing, but he has a major clothing company here in New York. And they were looking at a way to take online payments. And currently they were going through probably like 4 different services. They were using PayPal, which Braintree is a PayPal company, but they were using PayPal. They were using a merchant, like a shopping cart website. They were using one of those. And then they were doing another weird payment method. He was actually doing credit card transactions locally. That's what it was. And he heard me talk about Braintree on the show here on the GFQ network, and he called me and he told me, he's like, "Listen, what do you know about these guys?" I'm like, "They're great. That's what everybody tells me. They're phenomenal. Your first $50,000 in transactions are fee-free, so you don't pay anything. If you sign up with, our link, BraintreePayments.com/whatthetech. And he incorporated this. I told him the whole shtick. I told him how Uber's doing it, Airbnb's doing it, Hotel Tonight, Living Social. These are major, major companies out there, and you could trust these guys. Some of the selling points, obviously, it's the fact that you could take PayPal and Apple Pay and Bitcoin and all these different payment methods. But the thing that really sold this guy on the service is the fact that it's on a token system. So pretty much the merchant never receives their credit card information. They receive, the transactions go through, so there won't be compromises on that end. We see this happening more and more and more where credit card information, personal information is all being compromised. These companies are getting hacked and all this information is going away. You don't have to worry about that if you're implementing Braintree in your payment solution. Phenomenal service. The PayPal company, great guys over there, and that's a true story on my behalf. And I think those are a little bit better than me sitting here and telling you how great they are every week, which they are. But it's stories like this that you should be listening to when you're looking to sign up for a service, especially when it's something like this. When you're charging money, you're making money with this. Your first $50,000 in transactions are fee-free, which is tremendous. Go to BrainTreePayments.com/whatthetech. Tell them we sent you, and I want to thank them because they've been a big sponsor here at the GFK Network. So thank you, Braintree, for supporting the show and for supporting What the Tech. You know what someone said to me? Apparently, it's a Queens thing to say tremendous, and Donald Trump says it all the time.
Tremendous.
Yeah, he's like, oh, it's tremendous. Oh, tremendous. Everything is tremendous to him. I didn't know it was an actual Queens thing, and I asked him, I was like, oh yeah, we use tremendous and we use interesting all the time. Donald Trump. Guys,
Interesting.
This is who I will be when I grow up. It will be Donald Trump because I say tremendous. I was told that at the meetup a couple days ago. So, Paul, you were in New York for the last 2 days. A lot's happening. I guess we should start with the Surface Pro 4.
Okay.
To me, the biggest part of that announcement was the really good keyboard that they announced, or the much better keyboard that they announced. Yep. And this has been a complaint for many, many Surface owners that really want to use this as a productive platform to type and send emails and things like that.
Actually,
yes.
Let me show you something.
Yes, go ahead.
Before I went to New York, my intention was to bring the Surface Pro 3 with me.
Okay.
Right? But the problem I have with it, there's a couple of problems. One's the screen's a little too small for me. Although I realize most people are probably fine with that. But the other thing is the keyboard. I don't like the keyboard, which is what you're talking about. So I have this. Let's see how I can do this. Sorry, on camera. So I have I have a Surface Pro 3, right? And then I have this.
It's a Bluetooth. What is
like
it?
a
Bluetooth?
ThinkPad Bluetooth keyboard, right?
Yeah.
And so on Sunday or Monday or whenever it was before the show, I actually spent time configuring these things together. I mean, the Surface Pro 3 is already up to date. Otherwise, it's got all my data and stuff on it and applications. And I thought, I'm going to travel with this. I'm going to see what this was like. I had to kind of look up, what would it be? What's the point of this keyboard? Like, you must be able to turn it off somehow. I don't want it, engaging
Hold it up
when it's
Can I see it again?
Yeah.
Just hold it up. That's exactly the keyboard.
Yeah, it's basically it is rather, I should say, a ThinkPad laptop type keyboard. It's wonderful. It's much better than the Surface keyboard. Obviously, it doesn't connect to it, of course. I mean, it's not.
It'd be great with that if there was some sort of like mounting bracket. You could hook it in.
Well, the thing is, remember the Surface Pro 3 has a kickstand, so
yeah,
it's okay. I mean, it would work together. It's just slightly more awkward to travel with. But I was like, what, screw it, I'm going to do this. And actually, the reason I didn't bring it was I couldn't find the power adapter for the Surface Pro 3. I have it in a dock, and I have the dock powered, but I didn't have the. I have it somewhere. I just don't know where it is. So I ended up not bringing it. But it's interesting because to me, this was always the ideal, the ThinkPad portable keyboard. And I, to this day, still wonder why they don't offer this kind of keyboard as an option at the very least for Surface Pro. But as you were saying, I mean, maybe, I'll have to spend some time with it, but maybe that new type cover that they just came out with, could solve that problem. And for me, it would be one of the last few remaining issues I have with Surface.
So, and this is something we've discussed, I think, the last time when we went out to dinner. We were talking about how the keyboard, it's for business. I mean, a lot of business professionals use this. It's not just the common person buying a Surface Pro.
The common
The
person?
common person.
Well, I
You know,
mean,
like it's not, you're not spending, you know, the $1,500 or more if you're just looking to get a laptop.
well, you know what though? So here's the thing. This is something I kind of need to remind myself about because I write and I spend all day long on a keyboard, and keyboards are very important to me. Most people are not me, and they don't have my needs, you know. And the truth is, you know, most, you know, you're talking about people who need or want a laptop or whatever. I think the majority of those people don't necessarily need a certain level of keyboard or need it to be as good as I might want it to be,
Yeah,
right?
no,
That,
exactly. Yeah. That
you
and
know, the
that's my point.
PCs, I
Yeah.
think in some ways are optimized for something that is not necessarily the mainstream. You know, I mean, when you think about like what Microsoft's doing with Continuum and Windows phones, and this notion that you can get a lot of stuff done on this phone, but every once in a while you want to plug it into a dock and get on a keyboard and type because you've got a certain amount of text to type or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I do actually think that's the exception,
Okay,
right?
so
Not the
yeah.
rule needing that kind of capability. So, you know, maybe the thing we're complaining about here is not that big of
Which I have a whole theory about. I have a whole theory about Continuum and what their point with that is. But with the keyboard, I feel like when they announced the Surface Pro 3, they were targeting business professionals.
Yeah,
A lot of
absolutely.
that. And if you are typing, like let's say you're a writer,
Mm-hmm.
you're typing away on this thing. It's not the greatest experience to type away on a Surface keyboard. And that baffled me that
It's okay, right? I mean,
you
it
know,
works.
at first, you know what I had envisioned when they announced the original Surface? I said, oh, okay. They're going to have this crappy one, and then they're going to have the one that's a little bit better, and they're going to have a wide array of keyboards that Microsoft is going to put out, maybe 3 or 4 of them, and they go up in quality and they go up in price. So you know what? If you are Paul Theron and you need to type away, maybe you could attach this thing to a keyboard like the one that you just showed. You know, the Lenovo
by the way,
keyboard.
they talked. This was a couple of generations ago, I guess, but they were talking at one time about these blades. You know,
blades,
and this notion that third parties are going to come along and make, you know, maybe adapt. You know, different. I don't know what to call them, peripherals of some kinds. But I was thinking of, you know, keyboard makers, the Logitechs of the world, or whoever would come out and, you know, make a Surface like hardware keyboard, and I would have seriously considered getting something like that just to have the improved experience. It's funny, I'm looking at the photo of the new type cover online, and when you compare it with like this is the Surface Pro 3 version of the type cover, you can see the differences like in the elevation of the keys. Like you can see that they're separated. They take up more space. Like there's kind of, you know, we talk a lot about bezels on screens a lot.
Yeah.
I've always wondered, they've got this space on either side of this. Why? Why not? Why wouldn't the keyboard take up that entire space and it could be full size? Like this thing isn't quite full size. The version for Surface Pro 4 is not quite as wide as the whole thing, but it takes up about half of that space now.
Do you have that on your website? I'm trying to find a photo of it.
Just go to surface.com and click on Surface Pro 4 and scroll down. There's some really good pictures of it.
All right.
You know, the additional width of the keyboard and the size of the keys and the spacing of the keys, which I think is also important, makes it more like a real keyboard. Allows them to put additional keys in. You can see that there's a function key now on the left side of the spacebar, which there wasn't before. The trackpad, of course, is bigger, and now it's glass instead of whatever it's probably plastic or whatever. The material that they used in Surface Pro 3. And of course, the function row is, you know, like a standard keyboard now. It's not the weird Windows 8, you know, charms and stuff that was so out of date today.
You know what's weird? They're showing the stupid blue one. I don't want the blue one. I want to see like the big boy one with the fingerprint reader.
Well, so the fingerprint reader is only available. They're not going to show that on the Surface Pro 4 page because you don't need it, and that's not what you would get. That one's for Surface Pro 3.
No, it says
because Surface Pro 3 doesn't have a Windows Hello camera.
It says Surface Pro 4 accessories, and it shows this.
Shows what?
The keyboard under Surface Pro 4.
No, I mean, no, you don't. I'm sorry. You can, of course, get it.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is you don't need to. This one's more expensive. Surface Pro 4 already comes with a Windows Hello camera.
Okay.
A fingerprint ID reader would be slower. You wouldn't need it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like that thing is going to be more expensive. In fact, why don't you click on it because I don't know how much it is.
I did.
So it's 129 for the normal one. How much is the one with the fingerprint reader?
I want to see it in black. Okay, there we go. That makes me so much better. Let's see. It just says learn more. Let's see, pre-order.
No. Yeah, there you
go. 159.
159. Yeah. So okay, that's what I did. They're $30 more. So, if you have a Surface Pro 3 and you intend to keep using it for a couple of more years, that would be a great little thing, an addition. That would kind of extend the usefulness of it. Much better keyboard from what I can tell. Again, just a short amount of time using it.
Yeah.
At the show, and then the fingerprint reader, which is awesome for Windows 10.
Yeah, I mean that's really awesome. I was really impressed by it. The price point. You know what? For the longest time, I thought it was expensive, but the fact that you could get the Core M, what is it, the M3?
Yeah. By the way, I have a theory about this.
Okay, go ahead.
I've been reading up on the Intel stuff, and
you got the scoop.
yeah, I think I know why they're using an M3 instead of an i3 in the base model. These things are called Surface Pro, right? They're not Surface. It's Surface Pro.
Yeah.
Surface Pro means you're going to get Windows 10 Pro.
And that'd be a cruel
And one of the
joke.
features that's in Windows 10 Pro is Hyper-V, the virtualization solution.
Yeah.
The i3 chip does not support all of the processor features needed for Hyper-V, but the M3 and M5, M7 do. So I think a lot of people thought they went to M for that one model to do a fanless design. I actually think the real reason they did it was so that every model of the Pro device did support Hyper-V. And if you look at the Surface Book, there is no M3 i3 version. It's only i5, i7, and all i5 and i7 chips, of course, support all of the virtualization functionality.
Yeah.
So I think that's the real reason they did M3 on the base model.
Yeah, on the Pro, on the Surface Pro. Yeah.
Yep.
I thought it was great.
On the Surface 3, that's on Surface Pro 3. That's not the case.
Listen, for $899, what is it? $799, $899?
$899.
I mean, that's not bad at all, considering what you're getting, and you're getting this hybrid
Microsoft.
type device.
I made the observation, and they used the term. They used the word a couple times. They very clearly made a move toward the premium part of the market. These devices are not competing with the $300-$400 machines.
Yeah.
And so for the volume part of the market, the HP, Lenovo, Dell part of the market, that's theirs. Microsoft's not going to be there. And I think that's one of those ways that they can kind of cooperate and compete
OEMs,
at the same time, right? Because they're not really taking anything away from anybody.
Yeah, they're saying, well, listen, how many of those, mega Dells are you selling? The Dell MacBook clones. Probably it's a fraction of whatever their sales are in the PC world. It's a very small percentage of people are actually spending $2,000 on a PC. Majority of people are spending, $300, $400, $500, $600, $700. Microsoft has priced them out of that market with a premium device. I like the Surface announcement. Now, the big story here is the Surface Book. And it's an interesting device because it is, the screen comes off. It has two chipsets. It has two GPUs on some models.
Optionally.
On some models.
Not all versions of it do, but it can. Yeah, it can.
Touch screen. This thing is expensive. It's not cheap at all. I think the highest end is
super premium device.
$2,700 for the highest end. Which is
$1,499 to start is $600 more than a Surface Pro. Well, actually, that's not fair because you need a keyboard. So assuming you get a type cover, it's probably $450 more.
How much is the starting MacBook Pro for a Retina display? Let's find out. 13-inch by. Let's click on buy.
With a Retina, it's probably in that same.
Yeah, I'm curious if it's $1,400. Starting is $1,200. $1,299. i5, 8 gigs of RAM, 128 storage. So if we went with, you know what? It's exactly the same price. i5, 8 gigs, 256 is $1,500. It is exactly the same.
Interesting. You
add an i7, and you know what? If you add the i7 and 16 gigs, you're at $2,000. So the MacBook is about $100 to $200 more on the higher end.
It's a smaller screen.
Small screen.
Doesn't support touch. Doesn't support a pen. The screen doesn't come off. I mean, it's, so it's not, they're not in many ways even comparable,
Yeah.
other than pure performance, I guess.
Yeah. Horsepower wise, I guess they're compatible. So how do you think this is going to sell? I mean, the reports are that the pre-orders were sky high. I mean, they were very happy with what they saw with the pre-orders.
Yeah, no, Microsoft told me that the pre-orders for this device on day one were higher than any Surface they had already previously sold. And it obviously, when they told me that, the day wasn't even over. So
that's amazing.
Yeah,
I've heard mixed reviews. Some people say that it's a very pretty device. Other people say that it's hideous. The Surface Book.
So this is what I'm going to say about it. When I saw it in the video and when I saw them talking about it on stage, I thought it was weird looking, and
it's grown on you now.
I didn't think the design was particularly interesting. Going hands-on with it and spending some time with it, actually, it's a beautiful laptop. It's a really nice machine.
Okay, so here's a good question. When they were demoing it, right? When they were showing the first video, not the second video,
Yep.
right? Did you guys see a webcam on the back? Did they show that?
A webcam?
Yeah, it has a camera on the back.
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to remember because when I saw the video, I didn't initially see that. I'm wondering if they left it in there, and that's what
there
he
were
was
a couple
telling you
things.
to look at.
So, I had been tipped off about this machine ahead of time, and I didn't know the source, and so I didn't want to write a post about it, and I didn't have any independent verification. So I kind of tweeted about it, and I talked about the GPU and the base, 14-inch screen, and whatever else. I can't remember what else I said. I think I said all the ports were in the base, whatever. And I had more information than I just tweeted 140 characters worth and left it at that. And I passed this around. I threw it by Mary Jo. I threw it by Brad, and I ended up not writing a post about it. So when he talked about announcing another product, I was like, okay, well, this is going to be the thing I was talking about. But then he was talking about this laptop, and I knew it was a detachable, and I thought, well, that's not quite the same thing. But there were a couple of things in the first video where it kind of made me a little confused, because I knew there was a GPU in the base, and when they showed the GPU inside the machine, it was clearly in the base. And I thought, well, of course it would be on a laptop, right? It wouldn't be on the screen. I mean, maybe that's not that weird, but there were a couple of little hints that this was kind of different in that first video if you really were paying attention. But by the end of it, I was like, okay, I guess my source was wrong. This is just
a laptop.
They threw people off, whatever. But
I think to justify the price also for them, they kind of had to make it something else. I thought it was just going to be a convertible. When I first saw it, I'm like, okay, well, I see it bends, the hinge. Yeah. So I thought it was just going to recline and become a convertible into touchscreen.
I need to really play with this thing, but the hinge is still a little weird to me. I think that the thing that they got right about it is a lot of people, if you think about a traditional convertible where you kind of keep putting the screen back and it goes all the way back around, and then you can use it like a tablet, or you can use it with the screen kind of propped up. The keyboard's on the bottom and it's hitting the table, and people don't like that. And there are real problems with that kind of design. The keys can become scuffed, they can break off.
Yeah.
Things can happen. And so I think it was, I want to get this right. One of the people, I can't remember who it was. I think it was either Lenovo or HP. It must have been Lenovo. They have a retracting keyboard on one new model, which, kind of solves that problem. But the way that Microsoft solves it is to just let you pop off the screen, flip it around, and put it on backwards. And so when you curl it around like it's a tablet, or use it in kind of a, I don't know what you call it, like a stand mode or whatever, kiosk mode, the keyboard is never upside down. The keyboard is always up, and I actually think that's really important. And so that gap, in some ways, Microsoft told me it was about the nature of the hinge, that there would have to be that gap and that it posed no problems, yada, yada, yada. But yeah. I think part of it might have to do with the keyboard too. I mean, it never touches down on the keyboard.
Yeah, so
when it's reversed.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple things here. One, I'm looking beyond this device. Did you get my message, by the way?
Yes, okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. A couple things here. One, Microsoft now has the tablet, which is the Surface. They have their laptop, which is the Surface Book. Does this hint at an entire line of Surface devices, meaning I have a whole theory about the phone. I do think we're going to get a phone, and I do think it's going to be an Intel-based chip, and that's why it's going to be called a Surface. That's my theory on this. And I know that we've had a couple, discussions about stuff like
It's reasonable.
this. Yeah. So they're probably waiting for that. But do we see a non-touch version of this coming into the market?
I don't think so, because part of the point of Surface is to, as they say, bring Windows to life, right? And I think a big part of the modern Windows, whether you're talking about Windows 8, 8.1, or 10, in its respective time period, is touch. I think touch and pen, in other words, there are other companies building lower cost, lower end machines that don't expose all of the features of Windows. Microsoft's devices are not going to be those devices. And so, for the Windows 10 timeframe, obviously that means Windows Hello in some capacity. And that explains the camera in the Surface Pro 4. It explains the optional version of the type cover now for Surface Pro 3 that has a fingerprint reader. But it also means touch and it means pen. And even their lowest end Surface 3, supports that pen to the literal same level of, exactness and so forth. It's the pen is the same. It's not like a cheaper version of the pen. It's the same pen. I think it's more likely that what we're going to see is, as Panos Panay has more experience with the phone stuff, and he took over that part of the company, that I don't know that they'll use Surface branding or whatever. They'll probably make that decision based on the, what the devices are like and whatever. You mentioned like an Intel chip. That could be part of it, but I'm not sure that Intel is what makes a Surface, because of course we had ARM Surface devices too.
We did,
I think it's more exposing all of the possible features that are available in whatever version of Windows it's running, and that there is a certain kind of design precision to Surface. They take immaculate care in the build and construction and quality of these products. And the current Lumia devices, were designed by different people. It's a different team. That's changing. Those two teams are coming together. That's going to be different next time.
I think with Continuum is where an Intel, because someone said, well, why have a Surface branded phone if you have the Lumia lines? Well, the way that I see it is that the Surface branded phones would be the one with true Continuum, where it's not, because the desktop is still
True
like an
continuum.
true Continuum, meaning you can run desktop applications on this phone.
Maybe. I still think phone is going to be restricted to Windows Store acquired apps. That doesn't just mean universal apps. So sometime in the next quarter, I don't remember exactly when this is going to debut, but they've talked about it. This notion that they're going to allow software developers to wrap desktop apps in these kind of virtualized packages and deploy them through the store. And so let's pretend that Adobe Reader is one of those things. Like Adobe Reader is a desktop application today, but if you package it as what is essentially like an app v container, you put it in the store, you let people download it for free from the store. You get all the benefits of a store app, or like a universal app, right? It's simple installer, simple uninstall, right click on install. It's sandboxed from the rest of the system. There aren't DLLs all over the place. It's all self-contained. And theoretically, such an app could run on an Intel phone if there were such a thing. There isn't such a thing today.
Are they just porting it over? They're wrapping it in, I guess.
They're not porting it. This technology exists today. So Microsoft has a tool for enterprises called Microsoft Virtual. I think it's just called Application Virtualization, App-V, like App V. They're using that technology to package. I don't know, contain. No, I don't know, whatever the terminology is. Basically, what you're doing is you're taking a Win32 app and you're making it you're putting it in a self-contained package that can be deployed in a single step to a desktop computer or whatever.
Okay. And it's going to run as a modern UI,
No, there's no UI change. It's still a desktop app. But the point is, it provides the benefits of a store app because it's not spewing DLLs all over the place. It's completely self-contained.
Okay.
It's a virtual application.
Okay, so I guess
the application thinks its DLLs are all over the place, like they would be on a normal install, but it's not. It's faking out the application.
Okay.
And it just gives you the benefits of reliability and security. This thing can't infect the system if it's got a virus in it. It's self-contained. It can't get into the system.
Do you think that's the future of desktop applications on all of Windows?
Yeah, this is our transition away from desktop
Yeah.
applications. I think the future of desktop applications is they go away. But before that can happen, this has to happen. This is the transition.
Are let's say Skype. Skype is their product. I'm trying to think of an application that would benefit from this.
It's not about benefiting an application. It's about benefiting the user. There's no actual benefit to the application, right? It's
the benefit is being in that app store and being self-contained, right? I
guess, yeah. The benefit to the developer is the world is moving away from these styles of apps, these kind of complex, hard to install, sometimes impossible to uninstall applications that can be infected by other applications on the system, applications that can, in fact, affect other applications or the operating system. And so what this is you have I'm using Adobe Reader because that's not really a great example, but let's just say you have Adobe Reader. You as Adobe have no desire to ever make, I shouldn't say it that way. You don't want to start over from scratch and make a new modern universal app for Windows because it's so complex. You have years of development. It just doesn't make sense to do that. And this gives you a way to package this thing up so that you can still deploy it in a sense. And if you have people on really simple devices like a tablet or something, they can run your app, and the experience is super easy for them.
Number one,
I don't feel like I'm explaining this properly.
Okay, let's talk about like a real deal. Like let's talk about Photoshop.
Right.
Would Adobe want to do that with Photoshop?
So right. I mean, the problem is okay. Yes, and here's why. Okay. And actually, the phone is where it makes sense. So
and that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about right. For the phone because but
we're talking completely theoretically here.
Yeah.
so for example, we don't know that this is happening. We have to just kind of pretend. Like, what do I sort of see this looking like, right?
And we're talking about
if you have a Windows
your phone
a
for
Surface
Continuum.
phone, let's call it a Surface phone. It runs on an Intel chip, right? It has like 4 gigs of RAM and lots of storage and whatever. It's based on Intel, so you can put Photoshop on it. But it's a Windows phone, so Microsoft's not going to let you install apps to it like you do on a PC. You can't just go to the web and go to the Adobe installer and write. That's not how it's going to work. They're still going to restrict application installs. So you as Adobe put it into the Windows Store. You package it up as an app V package or whatever they're going to call it for the Windows Store. And that makes it available to people on mobile. But here's the thing. You're still not going to run it on the tiny screen. In fact, I fully expect that some of those apps will literally not let you run them on the screen. It will pop up something that says you have to use this on an external screen.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because once you connect it to a Continuum dock of any kind, and you have a keyboard and a mouse and a big screen, you run it from the screen, right? Because it has its own version of the start screen, a start menu in this case. And when you launch it there, Photoshop runs full screen. And now it makes sense, right? This can't work on Windows phones today because those Windows phones they just announced and all the other ones we know about run on ARM. And the ARM to Intel conversion is not happening. This is not what this is about. This is why this is also theoretical.
And by the way, we're using, someone said, a lot of these applications that we're probably talking about are available via apps. But we're talking about, this hypothetical Continuum setup where I think, why wouldn't they allow you to run, if it's an Intel chipset, when you connect via Continuum, why wouldn't they allow you to run desktop applications the way that they are right now? Why can't I just go to, the web and download Skype, from Skype?
Because it's still a controlled environment. Like the phone is never going to be the Wild West of the Windows desktop. They're literally trying to go away from this. Even on a tablet, you could make the argument that Adobe might want to say, if you're running like a 7-inch or 8-inch tablet, Adobe might want it to pop up and say, you need to be attached to something else to use this. There's no reason you couldn't use a little tablet with a Continuum dock and then connect it to all the stuff and have a full Photoshop. And that would make some sense. Maybe. I mean, of course, the problem with these little devices is that the processors are lousy. There isn't a lot of RAM necessarily.
Do I personally see people taking their phones right now and plugging it via the dock and then running Photoshop on it? No, I don't think that's something that's really going to happen too often, if it does happen at all. But the fact,
right? I mean, the use case for someone who absolutely has to run Photoshop, and does not want a laptop computer or whatever
It's insane. Yeah.
is non-existent.
Yeah.
I mean, so then that actually leads us to an interesting question, which is like, what's the point? And the point is actually, well, there's probably many points, but one of them is going to be businesses, right? There are a lot of businesses that are stuck on some old application that, it's never been updated. It's never going to be updated. We have to run it. They could package this thing up. There's an enterprise version of the store. They could package this out and put it out to their employees. And like we've been talking about, there are people who get most work done on a phone, and they can attach to a screen and get work done on that one app, and they can detach from the screen and go on with their life. I mean, it might be a way to move people forward. Applications like Chrome, iTunes, Photoshop are big and heavy and not expensive, complex, and in some cases expensive, but they're not really logical candidates for this treatment because, well, these are all big companies that could make modern versions of these apps if they want to. They just don't want to. Those apps don't necessarily make a lot of sense on a phone, although you could make a case for, at least for Chrome, certainly. I really think this is about backwards compatibility and just moving people forward. This is an interim step. Microsoft really does think that the future of applications on Windows are universal apps, right? Which will work across platforms. It's what they want. Win32 apps are the past. I mean, they're the present, but we're trying to get rid of this stuff, because they're not sophisticated, they're not secure, they're not reliable. They're potentially dangerous.
Well, now with floating apps, if you're a developer, there's way more of a reason for you to start developing, those type of applications rather than doing Win32 apps.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to start from scratch, you wouldn't write a Win32 app.
No, I mean, you don't have to. I mean, other than
it is a chicken egg thing. I mean, obviously, there's 110 million people running Windows 10. There are probably 500 million people running Windows 7, and 1 point something billion people running previous versions of Windows that can't run modern universal apps. And so, you have to kind of deal with that aspect. We're at the beginning of a transition here, and I think Continuum and this app packaging thing, I can't remember what they call it, what App V, for lack of a better term, is really just a step to get, to kind of move us to the future. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the many. I don't know if you've gotten to play around with this device yet, so I'll save that. I won't go
Which
into
one?
it. Have you played with the Surface?
Oh yeah,
Surface Book. The Surface.
Yeah,
Book.
I've used all the new hardware.
Okay. How did you like the keyboard
on which one?
The Surface Pro. Surface
the Surface
Book.
Pro.
Surface Book. I'm sorry.
The Surface Book.
Yeah.
I mean, the Surface Book is by all accounts a laptop. I think that's the interesting thing about it. In fact, it's kind of weird. Like, I've used a lot of 2-in-1s, and a lot of times these things are very top-heavy devices, right? Because it's a tablet with a base, and there's always, there has to be some way to detach it, right? And the way that works on Surface Book is kind of interesting because there's just a key on the keyboard, and you can use an on-screen thing too. If you weren't looking really close, I mean, there's nothing to indicate that this thing's a 2-in-1. I mean, it works, like it's a laptop. I mean, that's how it is. And so the keyboard is much better than any keyboard Microsoft has put on a Surface. It's a real high quality, nice laptop keyboard. And it has a large glass trackpad. It's even bigger than the one on Surface Pro 4 type cover. In fact, it's much bigger. It's a great laptop. And I really like the 3.2 aspect ratio. It's got kind of a tall look to it. You get very used to these kind of widescreen displays. This thing's more square, which is how laptops sort of used to look back in the day. It's great. That one's really good.
Trackpad, Paul.
What about it?
What about it? Tell me.
It's great. It's glass. It's wonderful. I've only had that day, but it does all. Well, it does all. It does. I mean, the couple of gestures I was able to do, a 2-finger scroll, very common. If you do a 3-finger up down gesture, it does I think it's like a task view kind of a thing where you can switch between apps. And that type of thing is very Mac-like, like different numbers of, fingers on the trackpad do different things. But it seems good. I've never, with the exception of the Mac, and I still have to kind of bend, before Apple and genuflect or whatever. But their trackpad on the MacBook Air, MacBook Pro is second to none. I like the finger, the kind of nubbin style point you see on ThinkPads better than anything. But as far as pure trackpads go, I mean, Apple's still the standard. And so I don't think the Surface Pro 4 trackpad is going to stand up
So I mean
to that level.
That brings up a good question. Why hasn't anybody matched Apple's trackpad?
I don't know.
I mean, it seems like it's a common sense thing to try to attempt. Where if you've ever used a MacBook Pro or any kind of MacBook, you know how good and fluid this trackpad is. Why wouldn't almost every PC manufacturer, especially on their higher end device, say, you know what, that's what we need to do. We need to do this.
Yep.
On all these laptops.
I think this is the dark side of the PC world. I mean, HP, Dell, Lenovo, actually Lenovo might be the exception. Most companies don't make this stuff themselves, right? They use a Synaptics piece. They use I can't remember the other big one. There's a couple of big trackpad makers, and those guys have their own software, and they kind of install the hardware into their own hardware, and they interact with the system, and it just hasn't historically worked. I mean, there were really good trackpads that have come out this year. The HP version on the the Spectre X360 is very, very good. The Dell, not the Dell XPS 13, but I guess the new version, the XPS 15, is very, very good, although I've not experienced that myself. And Surface Book, we'll have to see. Maybe, that might be the one. I mean, Microsoft would be the company to pull this off.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure yet. I just haven't had enough time. So far.
And the other problem is on the PC side. Since Synaptech is making it, you could have 5 different PCs in all different price ranges, and guess what? They could all have the same trackpad. That's a problem. That's a major problem.
Well, by the way, the new MacBook doesn't have the same trackpad.
No.
So even Apple can screw it up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's possible. So let's talk about the phones for a couple minutes, Paul.
Yep.
950, 950 XL. What do you think?
So obviously these things, all of the details about these devices was leaked ahead of time.
Months
Everything.
ago. Yeah.
And it kind of stinks. But I guess the thing that wasn't leaked, and the thing that you really wouldn't see from like a render, which I think was what most of those pictures really were. I don't think they were photographs. I think they were mostly renders. Is how kind of nice they are in the hand. Like I had this experience last year. A year ago, August, I saw the Lumia 735 and the Lumia 830 for the first time. And when he handed me I think it was the 735, but it's probably pretty true of both of them. Whichever one, it doesn't really matter. But anyway, he handed me one of the phones. And it was so light, you kind of, your hand almost lifted up as he put it on your hand because you expect it to be heavy, and it wasn't. And I said, well, this thing is clearly an engineering sample. I mean, do you have a version, with the battery and everything in it? And he said, no, this is turn it on. This is the real thing. And it's kind of interesting.
I don't know what happened there.
That was a good grab.
I don't know. This is it. This is the question right here.
Yep.
There you go.
It was it's kind of amazing how light they are, so that's the first reaction. First of all, so these devices are super thin, really nicely thin. The camera bump stuff that people were kind of complaining about are not obnoxious looking in the slightest. They're not protruding like half an inch out of the back or anything. There's nothing going on there. And they're so light, both of them, for their size. I held the 950 XL and an iPhone 6s Plus side by side. I mean, it felt like it was half as heavy. And that's obviously not what it really is, but that's the net effect, and there's a weird density that can occur with mobile devices. I used to always talk about how like the Lumia 920 was really dense, beyond its size. Like the weight was more than it should have been given its size. It just felt dense like a brick. And this thing, the 950 XL,
is the opposite.
Made the iPhone feel like a brick.
Wow.
Yeah, really different.
Did it feel like I know the feeling and do you think that concept where everybody was saying how it looked cheap and it wasn't a flagship device has that gone away at this point? Have those people
It's gone away by anyone who has seen them.
Yeah.
They're not cheap. But the other thing that's neat about them is because you can take off the back, you can put on backs. And you can put on backs that have different materials on them, right?
Oh, you can do
so
leather,
I've talked
you
about
can
how
do all different types, yeah.
You could, there were some third-party backs at the show. And so there's the potential for companies to come out with, new shells or whatever you want to call that for the back. So you could have like a wood back, a leather back, different color backs, different grips, different whatever. And I think that kind of thing is actually really nice.
It's the little things, right? I mean, the fact that you could customize it, you could do all that. They go a long way,
We'll see
especially
how
for
that
Motorola. I mean,
plans out, but
Motorola's done.
whatever. The device itself is really nice by itself.
So should we say goodbye to Verizon? We'll never see them again.
Yeah, no, I've been talking about that for months. I don't know. I'm really confused by how people still don't get that Verizon is gone. That if you're a Windows phone fan, forget Verizon. It's never happening. Back in July, I was told point blank, Microsoft is not working with those carriers that screwed them over before. They can't afford to. It's a small market. We can only work with carriers that really worked with us. And in the United States, that's AT&T, and that's it. And so it's not about animosity. It's just they don't have the time or the effort. There's no point in courting AT&T or Verizon only to have them wait 9 months before they ship a frickin' phone. And then never update it.
Well, what's amazing to me is that Verizon, all these years, they have still not bent on the way that they treat the phone manufacturers and the phone the HTCs and the Samsungs and the Microsofts and the Apples. Apple and Samsung are the exception here. But
but they sell millions of phones.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
They don't care. That's what it is.
They don't care about Microsoft. They're never going to. So just stop worrying about it. You can buy these things directly from Microsoft. They work multi-band. GSM obviously is going to be where you have to be. So it's going to be T-Mobile, AT&T in the United States, but they'll be international. They'll be carry-on locked. You get them right from Microsoft. That's the way to buy them. Even if you're on AT&T, you should buy it from Microsoft. Don't buy it from AT&T.
Well, there was another phone that was announced also very, very quickly.
Yeah.
In December.
Blink and you miss it.
Yeah. Well, how much was it?
140, 130, 140.
So what's the story with that? Just everything but
it's
lower
a Lumia
end?
5. It's a 4.7 inch device, Snapdragon 210, 8 gigs of storage. It's probably 1 gig of RAM.
Snapdragon 210.
210.
Yeah, it's a slow processor.
It's a low end phone.
Yeah.
5 megapixel camera. We're not talking about anything great, but again, this is the successor to the Lumia 5. I'm forgetting the numbers now. 520, 525, 530, which was a piece of junk.
Yeah.
635. It's that phone, and on that level, this is probably a pretty good phone. And again, it's a throwaway amount of money. Anyone can afford it.
If you want to try out a Windows phone, this is the way to do it.
That will be the new one. No. And by the way, I should say it's going to debut
December,
and only in Europe.
Really?
At first.
They didn't mention that.
I know. It's true.
That's interesting. They did not mention that.
It will be around.
Overall, it was a very strong lineup from Microsoft.
Yeah.
Were you surprised that we didn't see anything about Windows 10, about the build? The new build that's going to be coming out?
Yeah, I had expected them to talk about
Threshold 2, Wave 2.
Well, this notion that when these Windows phones are going to come with Windows 10 Mobile, what's going on there? They didn't talk about that at all. Will Surface Pro 4, Surface Book come with this Threshold 2 release? It doesn't appear so. And I think if you were to ask Microsoft about this, they would just say that doesn't matter because Windows 10 just gets updated, and when Threshold 2, which they're not going to call it that, it comes out, we're just going to deliver it to everybody. It doesn't matter.
But we didn't
honestly, I think they were released.
But we didn't
I think that was the kind of the plan originally. I'm not sure what they're doing there.
But for me, we didn't even see the fact that any kind of information about it. They didn't say like, oh, these are the changes that we're implementing.
Okay. So I'll play the Microsoft PR role and say it was a hardware show.
Yeah. Well.
No, I'm just I'm just saying it was a hardware show.
I guess
Windows 10. What more do you need to know?
Yeah, Windows 10 is Windows 10. So what if we upgrade this and upgrade that? Overall, I thought it was a good show. I thought it was a great show. What out of all the things, right, that you saw, was the book the biggest surprise for you, even though you kind of knew?
Yeah, it wasn't even confronted with the kind of details I had about it. It wasn't quite what I expected. The hinge was weird. I was also very happy and surprised by the Surface Dock, which I think solves a lot of problems and is the right way to do docking.
It's a little too pricey though.
No,
I'm sorry, not the Surface Dock. I thought you meant the Continuum thing.
Oh, that yeah.
Yeah, that dock.
There was no surprise there. I mean, everyone's so excited about Continuum. It's like a feature no one's ever going to use for anything, and it's not going to sell any phones. And it's just the same demo over and over again. We get it. It runs Word and Excel.
Well, I don't know what I'm tired about hearing more. Continuum or HoloLens? That HoloLens demo.
The HoloLens lie.
Yeah. You're shooting things in your living room.
Yeah.
It's the year 2020, apparently, in the world of Microsoft. We're 5 years away from that happening. 5 years away. Yeah, I guess 2020 is not that far away. 4 years away. That's crazy to think that. We're in the future, Paul. We're still
2020 is my
things.
target.
For what?
That's when my daughter graduates from high school and I can start living somewhere else.
You're out of here. You're going to like Belize. Yep. Still living on an island somewhere. Forget about computers.
Yep.
Totally disconnect from everything. I really like the laptop. I'm really, really interested in version 2 of this thing.
Yeah, I am too. And,
what feedback they receive and what changes they make to it. Because I don't think version 2... I think version 2 will probably be very different.
Yeah, I talked to him about the Hinge, and I said, you guys are such sticklers for perfection and engineering prowess and everything. I mean, that gap has got to really bother you. And they were like, no, not really. And, they sort of said it was dictated by the nature of the Hinge and yada, yada. I firmly believe next year that thing will be flat. I have no doubt about it,
It's almost like they got like a box of hinges and they're like, well, we got to use these.
Yeah.
We got to use these.
I mean, they custom designed this thing. It's their own thing. And honestly, what's his face? Panos Panay said something really interesting that's absolutely true.
Why?
And I think he said it with regards to the keyboard in the Surface Book. He said, we've been making keyboards at Microsoft for 25 years. This is not new for us. We know how to get this right. And I was like, okay, that's fair. I mean, I use an ergonomic Microsoft keyboard I have for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
I rely on these things, the keyboard on the Surfaces to date has not been good for me. I mean, remember the first couple, you could buy like a touch cover or whatever they called it, that was just a flat, cover that had keys on. It was ludicrous. So
they've gotten better. I want
to a lot better, and the Surface Book is the real deal.
For the Surface Pro, I want a mechanical, like an old school mechanical keyboard.
Like a clackety clack.
Yeah, but I want it from Microsoft. Like I want it to attach to it just like I was supposed to, and just use it that way. Just type like this. Got to push down really hard on it. No, I thought it was great. I thought it was a great announcement. I thought it was a great show. I'm hoping these products do well because it's really going to dictate the future of where they go with their hardware line.
Yeah.
This is the best Surface yet. I mean, that's the reality of it. And apparently they're doing something really good because if you look at what Dell is putting out, what Lenovo's putting out, what all these other OEMs are doing, they're copying the Surface, which is exactly what Microsoft wants them to do.
Don't forget Apple.
Apple
also copying the Surface. I mean,
this is what Microsoft wants. This is the reference point. This is the device that all these manufacturers should be creating. You don't have to create it as good as Microsoft is doing, but you should attempt to come close and attempt to do better.
Remember, one of the big debates just a couple of weeks ago was, HP, Dell. Well, Dell's reselling Dell and HP are reselling the Surface too, but Dell, HP,
the XPS
Lenovo,
12. The XPS 12.
These companies are just ripping off Surface. So now that they've finally bought into this, type of form factor, is there any reason for Microsoft to keep making Surface? And now you look at what they did, and you're like, okay, they've kind of moved on. I mean, I think they're refining the classic design of Surface Pro, like Surface Pro 4. You can kind of look at Surface Pro 2 and Surface Pro 4 as Microsoft's S devices to kind of put it into Apple lingo, where it's based on the previous design, but it's refined. And so we're not talking about a revolutionary new design. We'll see how that changes if it does next year. Which, by the way, it could change a lot now because of that dock. The biggest problem going from Surface Pro 3 to Surface Pro 4 was this stupid dock they had to build it to, right?
Well, The Verge actually, Tom Warren posted an article on The Verge. He says everyone is copying Microsoft Surface. So, and he actually has a whole list of all these products here. I mean, this looks like a Surface to me.
Yeah.
You look at that quickly, you're like, oh, that's a Surface.
Yep. So I mean, some of them are really bad.
Yeah,
The Lenovo one in particular is an insane
that's the one. This one.
with a
Look,
kickstand.
even
I
with
mean,
the kickstand, yeah.
this is the keyboard. I mean, by the way, look at that keyboard. So that's a lot like the type cover for the Surface Pro 4, right?
Yeah, and you know what? Even look at this. This is the Google one.
Yeah, Google, Apple, they're all doing it. The thing is, when Surface first came out, Microsoft's competitors, not PC makers, but companies like Google and Apple, made fun of Surface. Microsoft's partners were openly hostile to Surface. In fact, I arguably Surface is the reason why every PC maker makes a Chromebook, was just to get back at Microsoft. A little bit of childhood style revenge. Um, so anyway, we'll see. The Surface Pro 5. It's obviously not too early to start thinking ahead.
No, it's
Maybe they change things up now that they can because the dock has changed. But now they're going in a different direction too. And obviously they're looking at all kinds of different device types. For some reason, they felt like the laptop was the thing that they could innovate on, and they're attacking the high end of the market. So they're not taking anything away from anybody. We'll see how it goes.
Paul, did you see the XPS 15? It came out, the new one.
Mm-hmm.
It looks great.
Yeah, I don't like the XPS 13. I'm a little confused why everyone's so gaga over it, but the XPS 15 is really interesting to me because it's got that gorgeous big screen. So we'll see. That one I'm very interested in.
And they also have the XPS 12, which is a Surface.
Stupid little tablet thing.
You don't like it? I don't.
No, I don't like. That's too small. Those things are too small. Those are toys.
Looking at the XPS 15. So I priced this out earlier. I was at almost $2,000. Same. I mean, it's getting a Mac. And it's not. By the way, it is not touchscreen. The XPS 15.
What is it?
XPS 15. It is not touch.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
Okay.
By the way, that's another thing about the Surface Book that I don't think a lot of people understand. It's what Microsoft calls like an 80-20 device. And what they mean by that is 80% of the time you're going to be using it as a laptop. You're not going to be touching it. You're not going to be using it as a laptop. As a tablet. For me, it's more like 95-5. I mean, I don't think even, most of my devices now are touch-based. But the truth is I don't really touch the screen a lot. And I certainly don't pop off the screen when I can and use it as a tablet very much at all, whether it's a Surface or anything else. On the Surface Book, that usage is sort of enforced by the hardware because not only do you not get that GPU if you're not plugged into the base, if you have one, you also don't get 75% of the battery. Most of the battery is in the base. So when you unplug that thing, it's only good for 3 hours. This is not a tablet that can turn into a laptop. It's a laptop. And you can sometimes use it as a tablet for a little while. But it's not designed to be used like you're going to be writing it on all day long or whatever. If you're going to be doing that, you want to get a Surface Pro 4. It's not the same device.
Okay, so I got a question for you. The battery that's in the tablet portion, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're using it, is it using both batteries?
Yeah, if you're plugged in.
No, you're not plugged in. Yeah, I mean you're docked, obviously,
Yeah,
but you're not. You're walking around.
Yeah,
with
if
this
you've
laptop.
ever used Windows with like a I don't have it here. I mean, actually, this one doesn't have battery anyway. I can't look at it. So if you ever use Windows with a system that has 2 batteries, and you click on the little power icon that you see down on the tray, it will actually show you both of them, and it will show you how much each one is.
Yeah, and I guess that's why they're able to get so many hours of battery life. What were they saying? 12 hours of battery life? I mean, obviously, you're not
12
get,
hour rate. Yeah,
I don't know if
okay,
that's a real world situation, but I mean that's
it's
still.
Not.
Yeah,
I'll just there's no way. But by the way, 9-10 hours I think is reasonable.
yeah.
The Surface Pro 3 was rated at 9 hours, which the Surface Pro 4 is also rated at. And the real world usage was somewhere in the 5 to 7 range. So I'm thinking Surface Book is 9, 10, somewhere in there.
Are they losing space? Why wouldn't it be tremendous? Why wouldn't they get even more, battery life? Considering this is attachable and it's a regular tablet.
So 2 reasons.
Okay.
If you put more battery in the top, it becomes top heavy and it will topple over. That's one of the things they want. It's one of the reasons why the hinge doesn't go back all the way. If you think about it, if you put the screen back too far, it would just go flying over. The other one is by not having too much battery in the the tablet, they allow that thing to be thinner than it would be otherwise. And you want it to be as thin as possible because it's a screen of a laptop, right? It's not quite as I can't grab stuff from here, but if you think about a typical like a real ultra book, the screen part, the top part where the screen is very thin. It's like really, it's like wafer thin. This is not like that. It's like a small. Oh, sorry, not small. It's like a thin Surface tablet, but it's thinner than any Surface, but it's still thicker than any Ultrabook screen. So it's kind of the compromise,
Yeah.
But again, it's a laptop. It's not like a laptop first, then a tablet. It's a laptop that can sometimes be used as a tablet. It's a different kind of equation.
I mean, it's a very interesting device, and I'm hopeful that it'll do well. So they further innovate this thing.
Yeah.
I just don't want this to be like a big flop for them. Be like, all right, yeah, you know what? It didn't work out for us. But now they're in it. So now they got to go. They got to do it.
It looks great to me. And I have to say, by the way, this is another example of when they were showing it off on screen and on stage from the audience. I thought, I was like, it's a little awkward looking, I don't know. But when you go afterwards and you play with it and you put your hands on it, you pick it up and turn it around in your hands and everything. Okay, actually, this is nice. And the phones were like that, right? You see pictures of me like, whatever, it's generic looking phones.
See,
whatever.
I didn't feel that way about the phone when I saw it. I
No,
didn't
but a
feel
lot
like
of
it was
people did.
crappy.
A lot of people were complaining, that they were cheap.
Well, I felt like I was missing out on something, and I wasn't seeing it because people are like, "Oh my god, this thing is hideous! It's a mid-range phone. It's all plastic and it's all and I didn't feel that way about it."
Of this, the Nexus 5X and 6P or whatever they're called. When we saw renders and photos of them, everyone, and myself included, was kind of freaking out about the camera bump, especially in the 6-inch version. It looked horrible, right? It looked like there was some giant knob sticking off the back of the phone. But when Google actually announces those phones and you see the real thing, you're like, actually, that's not objectionable at all. There's something, you can film things or draw things in a certain way. It just makes it look bad. But sometimes those things in person are fine. They're fine. And I think those new Nexus devices fall into this category. I think the new Windows Phone, the Lumias, fall into this category. And I think the Surface Book also falls into this category.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I think we touched on everything, Paul. all the devices.
Hooray.
Yeah, hooray. And I'm sure over the next couple of weeks we're gonna have more stuff happening. When is Threshold Wave 2 coming out?
Supposed to be October originally, but I'm hearing November now.
Yeah. So. It's supposed to be like now, right? The next week or so.
Yeah, but it's not. That's not happening.
Okay. So we're coming up to that. There's a lot happening, guys. So keep watching. Of course, if you want to, we're going to continue doing our bonus show right after this. So if you're watching live, stay tuned. We're going to talk about the event in New York, Paul's trip, everything else that happened. If you are listening to the podcast, you could always watch it. Patreon.com/whatthetech. You can fund us whatever you want to fund us. And it's all there. You could also, if you want to help out the GFQ network, use our Amazon link, gfq.co/Amazon. That's gfq.co/Amazon. The holidays are coming up, so whenever you buy something on Amazon, use that link, bookmark it, click on it, and we get a tiny little credit from every sale. You can follow Paul on Twitter @TheRot. You can follow me @AndrewZarian. We're everywhere podcasts are available, so subscribe to us. Subscribe. We're on YouTube. We're everywhere. So you can watch it on therot.com. And that's it, guys. We'll see you all next week. Bye-bye for now.